Hi, this is Chris. Welcome to my video teaching and running through Galaxy Trucker. Um, I'm going to go over all the bits which are available for Galaxy Trucker at the moment, I believe. If there's any more, then I'm missing out. So that's the base game, that's just the books for them. Base game, first expansion, second expansion, which are included in the Anniversary Edition box, which I've got, and the latest models, which I've also got, which add some extra ships. Um, The way Galaxy Trucker works is you have two phases. The first is a building phase, where you're building components up on this board and filling in this outline to try and get a good balance of um, things to do in the game. When the second phase comes around, which is a race, it's sort of a race where you get points for being in front and having cargo and such like as you go along. So you're trying to make money as you go. Person with the most credits at the end of 3 rounds in the base game, or potentially more with expansions, or potentially a fourth with expansions, is the victor. So I don't entirely know what order to go through things in, but the boards. Let's start with the main board here and go through what's on it. This little section here, which is also different cards for rounds 2, 3, and 4, is the setup card. So it's saying round 1. The 2-1 cards basically means that you take 2 of these, you put 2 there, 2 there, 2 there, and 2 on there. I think you put the last 2 on there anyway. So you've got 4 sets of them, and that's how that sets up, and you'll see how that comes in a short while. This is distance apart, so depending on what order people finish the building phase in, they get put onto the position track here. So as you can see, that's 1 and a space and a gap. On the higher level cards, it's 2 gaps. You'll also see on the higher level rounds, you have 2 of the new one and then 1 of the old one. And again, 2 of the new one, one of each of the previous ones. So you get a bigger deck each round as the high level cards are added. Right, the 4-3-2-1 is if you're at the front at the end of the race. So say this is the finished positions, you'd get, this person would get 4 points, this person would get 3 points. This is a attractive or well-built ship bonus. The person with the least exposed connectors on their ship at the end of the race gets a bonus set of points. It's also used for a couple of other things when the expansions are involved. These numbers just tell you how much each cargo is worth. As you go through the game, you'll be getting the various bits of cargo, just little cubes. So red or dangerous cargo, as it can be referred to, is worth 4 credits, 3 for yellow, 2 for green, and 1 for blue. This signifies that when a component's broken off, it's worth -1 credit. Sometimes there's a limit on how much negative you can get for losing components. You'll see that when I show you the ship boards. These are for each round. You gradually have the timer further up. For the higher rounds, whenever someone wants to, they can flip the timer so it's onto a lower number. So in the higher rounds, there's a lower limit on how long people have to build their ships, so they can actually finish them off, as they're much bigger and harder to make, and you don't want people to have a completely non-built ship, as that wouldn't be much fun for them. The last flip you can only do once you've finished building a ship, or if you've not finished and you decide you want to be mean to everyone. When you do that, as soon as the timer runs out, everyone has to stop building, including, well, you'll have had to stop already. Also, when you do that, you'll take the lowest available one of these tokens left to say that's the order you finished in. So that's that. There's also a little guide to some of the things in the game, which, no, I've never really looked at it. I'm going to explain things on there anyway. So, building a ship. To build a ship, you're going to have to use various components. Some of them I've got face down at the moment. These are the expansion components, so I'm only going to be going through the ones which are in the base game to start with. When I've finished going for the base game components, I'll bring in all the large amount of little expansion modules you can add to this game. first of all, this is just a first of all, each player has a color and they have this central module. Central module has 4 universal connectors. The way connectors work is a universal, which is the little 3 one, can connect to anything. The 2-sided one can only connect to another 2-sided one, so that's not allowed. 2-sided one can connect to a 2-sided one, or a universal one, so it can connect to a 2-sided one. And the same goes for single-sided connectors. That's not valid. No. Against universal, it's valid. Against another single, it's valid. So you have to keep to those rules while you're building your ship, or pieces will fall off before you've even started flying. Whenever you do lose those pieces, they go into this little penalty zone here. And you can see on a level 1 ship, there's a maximum of -5 you can get from losing components when they're blown off or when you mess up your building. I don't know why I stood up then. I'm still going through these. Oops, I knocked all these around. This module and this are crew compartments. So when you finish the building phase, you'll put 2 crew on each of these, which can be used during the race, and that's about that. So yeah, that one you can just have 2 crew on. So you always have 2 crew in your starting ship because you need crew to keep on flying and you drop out the race if you don't have that. This is a structural module. It does absolutely nothing other than helps you put your ship together if you're struggling for the pieces. Ideally, you want to avoid doing that if possible, because it's not a very effective way to build your ship. But it does mean that it's quite strong, and it's always I think they've all got 4 connected sides on them, and some other components have less, so they can be a bit weaker to have in your ship. This is just, like I said, another crew compartment. You can also potentially have, instead of the 2 normal crew, you can potentially have aliens in them, which I'll get to when I get to the end of here, as they're a bit more of an optional component. The rest, the ones this side are sort of, well, aside from these 2, this is all kind of things you kind of need to have on your ship. These 2 are cargo. The white cargo can only hold the lower value yellow, green, and blue cargo cubes. The red cargo, the dangerous ones, have to have special cargo spaces, and the special cargo spaces can also hold the yellow, green, and blue. So you don't need to have. So if you can get the decent red ones, you might as well, because they can hold the others anyway. But most of the tiles for normal cargo have more spaces available than the majority of the reds. In this case, I happen to have picked 2 at random to show you which are both 2 spaces. When you get cargo, you just place them wherever you like on the thing. Sorry, I got my head quite close to the microphone then. It might be quite loud. These pieces are engines. Engines have to go at the back of your ship. That would be invalid. That would fall off, and it would go straight to your penalty zone if you tried to build it there. Something to note about building is you have to build from your center module outwards. So in this case, the only places I could really put this are here and here, because it's got to be connected to my ship that I've already built so far. Sometimes we play with a bit of a variant where you can just build wherever you want, just because we want an easier, more friendly game. But the rules in the game are meant to be connected. Also, if you happen to end up with it somewhere in the middle of your ship, like here, that's absolutely fine, but you have to leave a gap behind it. If you don't, then that piece will get destroyed and go to your penalty zone again, and anything connected to it. So, for example, here, if I put it here, I'd essentially be blocking myself from putting anything in any of those 5 spaces. That would be a bit of a waste. Probably mentioned, when you're the way you actually do the building phase is that everyone in real time, everyone at the same time, is in a kind of mad rush to grab tiles from the middle, reveal them, and then place them on their ship wherever they can. And then when you've put one, you put it back face up so other people can see it. And it's a kind of rush to get what you can and build your ship as efficiently as possible. While considering that if you're too slow and try to be too careful, everyone else might get the good components. Equally, if you're too fast, you might mess up your ship. Sorry, I'll show you in the run through at the end of this video, maybe another video afterwards. This is a laser. Unlike engines, they can be oriented any direction, but like engines, they cannot have a component in front of them. So again, if it was here, you couldn't have a component here, and if it was here, you couldn't have a component here, for example, and the like. Sometimes you can shoot things down. So when a meteor comes towards your ship, if it's in the column where your laser is, you can the laser shoots it down and it doesn't hit your ship. Forwards and backwards, it's just one column. When it's to the side, so left and right of your ship, it covers 3 columns. There's kind of like your ship speeds up or slows down, so your laser can shoot down the meteor. Something to consider when you're doing those. This, which I've already put some energy on it just as a demonstration, is a battery tile. When you build one of these, you get at the end of the building phase, you'll get free energy on it. You'll never be able to get more energy during a round. Mostly, I don't think you can get any more crew in the round either in the base game. In the expansions, there's ways to add it, although they're quite difficult in general. And it's also worth noting, also, when you gain cargo, you can move cargo around anywhere you want. So you could shift, say you had a yellow in here, and you gained a red, you could shift it into your white cargo and then put the red here. You can move it around however you like. Crew and energy, you can't move them. They stay wherever you put them at the end of the building phase, and they don't replenish. So you've got to be careful how much you spend. The uses of this are for, in the base game, 3 different things. First of all is a double engine, and double lasers are basically the same but for lasers. These are just 2 strength versions of the single ones, but they have 0 strength unless you spend a power. So when you want to activate them, you end up having to spend 1 of your power from your unit, put it back to the supply. So you've got to make sure you get enough of your of these battery tokens on your ship that you can afford to survive throughout an entire round. This is a shield. Shields cover from 2 directions, so you can see it's kind of at a diagonal. This shield covers that way and that way. Put it on the ship as a better demonstration. So small meteors and small incoming fire from enemy ships, from ships you might come across during the race. This would defend against shots coming from this way and from this way and from this way, but not from this way or from over here. And to activate it, you have to spend a power token. So obviously, optimally, you want to have one facing that way, and you also want to have one facing that way, because then you're covered from all 4 directions. But it's usually quite difficult to get all of those, although it's perfectly possible. I can't remember how many shields there are in the setup, but it's quite good if you can get coverage in all directions. And finally, these are the 2 which, like I said, are somewhat more optional. These are alien life support. If you have an alien life support module attached to a crew module, except for not your main one though, that has to be humans. Let's get it to a normal module. You can place an alien in it instead of 2 crew. Aliens don't count towards preventing your ship from dropping out of the race. They won't pilot the ship for you. You have to have at least 1 human left for that. But what they do is provide bonuses to your lasers in the case of the purple one, or engines in the case of the brown one. So as long as you have, say you've got this laser alien, as long as you've got at least 1 laser somewhere on your ship, if you had a double, as long as you paid 1 to activate it, then the laser alien gives it a bonus of 2. But that's it's a 2 flat bonus. It's not every laser. You have a 2 flat bonus to your laser. So if you had that and that on your ship, you could either have, if you had both, then activating and you paid an energy, you'd have 3 plus another 2, so you'd have 5. It's a way of getting a bit of extra laser strength. You can only have 1 of each alien type on your ship, so it's quite good to have 1 laser alien and 1 engine alien, but making sure you've got enough human crew as well, because that has its uses. So yeah, that's all the tiles you'll be using in the base game to build your ship. So let's go over here, where these are the adventure cards. If you ignore that, because that's in one of the expansions, these 3 rounds are what you get normally. The reason some of them are sideways is just because those are so much added in the expansions. So I didn't put these in an order I've just got one of each, but I didn't put them in any kind of order to make it helpful. So first of all is open space. With the open space card, what this means is that everyone, I'll just get rid of that out of the way, all players fly some distance in their ships, depending on how many engines they have. If you've got no engines at this point, you have to drop out of the race because it's open space, and everyone else flies ahead and you drop out. Where you do this is that going from the player at the front, everyone decides how much energy they might want to spend on using double tiles, and then moves that many spaces forwards. So say I had both of these, and I was the first player, I might be like, I don't want to lose this, so I'll spend one of my energy, and then I'd move 3 spaces forwards on the track, and then red player might move only 2. So that's a way that you can potentially change order, because if red moved, if blue was to only move 1, and red moved 3, red would now be in first place, and they'd get a first pick of the cards, which I'm about to mention. So next important, I'll hold it up. Next important card, actually it gets in the light, but probably a bad idea, is planets. When you reach planets, going from the player at the front, each player can choose a planet to visit. They do this by placing their little second ships onto the card. So the first player will go, well, I've only got 2 cargo spaces and yellow's worth more, so I'd go here. Second player would go there, and if there was a third player, they wouldn't be able to get onto it. So as you can tell, there's an incentive for you to be near the front, because if you're nearer the front, you'll be able to get at the precious cargo held on planets. Some of the planets have enough cargo on them for everyone, but some also don't, like this one. When a player does that, after everyone's decided who's going on the planets, it goes from the player at the back, and each person who did take one takes a ship back off here and then moves back this many flight days. So what that means essentially is if red and blue had gone here, then first of all red would go 1, 2, 3, and blue would go 1, 2, 3. So say if there was another player somewhere in here, then they'd potentially move behind them. So you've spent some time looting a ship, which also goes to show, like, even if you finish building first, if someone else has, if you keep on looting everything, then other people will get their chance to move ahead of you, as you'll be going back flight days to spend your time looting things. Right, let's carry on with the nice bonus kind of things. An abandoned station. If this comes up during the flight, if you've got 5 crew members and you're the person at the front, you can choose to take this cargo and lose a flight day, or pass it on to the next person. These are only once, so only the person at the front is going to get priority. If they can't do it, or if they don't want to do it, the next person gets a chance, etc., etc. This one's similar to the other one, except you have to give up 2 crew. So you have to give them back to the supply, and that gives you a bonus and loses you a flight day. Then we have the things which are slightly more horrible. So the least horrible of these is a meteor swarm. In this case, it's just a first round one. So in this case, you'd get a little one from the front, a little one from the back, a little one from the left hand side, and a little one from the right hand side. When you to resolve a meteor, you just go, so the first one, and everyone gets the same roll for this. One person just rolls it. I think it's the person who's in the lead rolls for these, and you'd roll the dice, and that would be to say the first meteor goes down column 11. You look on your board, that's here. Sails past everyone's ships. One from the back, column 5, and that would come up here. And if someone had say someone's, obviously this couldn't be here because this always starts in the middle, but say it was here, that component would get knocked off and destroyed. But with a little meteor, it's only if there is one of these connectors on the side. So say you had this component, if it was coming up column 5 and you had a component like that somehow, then a little meteor would just bounce off that and it would be harmless. If it was this way around, so there's a connector, that would destroy the component. So you can see it's quite good to try and make sure you've always got space around the sides of your ship. Then there's the two slightly more horrible cards, which are Pirates and Slavers. In the case of both of these, there is a laser number on the side. Going from the person at the front, if they have this many lasers, then they defeat it and they get this many, this bonus, so it could be credits or cargo or anything, and lose a flight day. If they don't have it, they essentially just look at this. If they've only got 4 laser strength, they'll take a little shot from the front, a big shot from the front, and a little shot from the front. Little shots can be defended with shields. Big shots, there is nothing which can block against them in the base game at all. And it's quite difficult to defend against them even with the expansions. So pirates, you get shot. With slavers, if you don't have enough, then you just lose 3 crew. As soon as someone beats them, though, so if the first person beats them, no one else deals with the slavers at all. No one else deals with the pirates or slavers at all. The person at the front's got on their bonus, and that's done and dusted. But potentially, no one might have the laser strength, and it could burn for everyone. The likely thing is that the person who's at the front has, if they've either got a lot of engines, and that means they might not have enough lasers, so it might go through a couple of people because their ship's more balanced towards speed and getting to the front than it is towards fending off things. So it gives the people at the back who went for more gun-heavy ships a chance to gain something. A combat zone is an area where lots of people take a negative, and it's based on whoever has the least of something. So, in this case, whoever has the least crew, a little less than crew sign, loses 3 flight days. So everyone compares how much crew they've got and loses 3 flight days. Least engines loses 2 crew, and least lasers takes 2 shots. So you want to try and have a good balance of all your things to make sure you're not last in any of them if possible. And finally, the last kind of card you get in the first round in the base game is Stardust. With this, you lose 1 flight day for each exposed connector. So say this was all you had as a ship, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4 connectors. It doesn't count like the 1, 2, 3 or anything, it's just like one edge. So that'd be 4. Say this was your only component, then you'd lose 3 flight days. So again, you want to try and have blank space around the entire side of your ship. And if you, you want no component to not be connected to another component and just have space around the side. And then you won't lose any flight days for this, and that'd be good. There's only one other card which can come up in the first 2 rounds for the base game, and that is when you get to round 2, you get something called an Epidemic, which is a horrible card which no one tends to expect and everyone forgets about. With an Epidemic, each occupied cabin joined to another occupied cabin loses 1 crew member. What this means is that if you have, so that's a crew cabin, then if you had another one, if this was your setup and you had an Epidemic came along, you'd lose 1 crew from each of these cabins. And this also counts if you had an alien in one, you'd lose an alien and a crew. That would really suck. So as you can tell, it's a good idea to try and make sure that in the 2nd and 3rd rounds, and 4th of expansion, you keep your crew cabins separated by other tiles rather than cram them all together in one little central module. Okay, so that's all the cards and such in this. The way you make the cards, you just shuffle these piles and take random ones in the amount there. Like I said, you put them here, here, and here. The reason for that is during the building phase, instead of taking tiles, you can also grab one of these sets at a time if you like, and look at the 2 cards. So you might sort of, during the building phase, you can, instead of going like looking at these and flipping them up face up so everyone can see them, you might like secretly have a look at these instead and then go, oh well, I want to make sure I've got a perfect ship with no exposed connectors this round because I know this is coming up. Because obviously you might not have Stardust in a particular game because there's not enough of those cards in the deck. That's actually about it as far as the base game goes. One thing to show is The ships in the base game are this one, which is the first round ship. You've got one second round ship, which is a sort of bigger version of the second, if you see them side by side. And then there is a third level ship, which again is a slightly bigger version. It looks like it's got kind of cannon sections on the side, or engines if you like. Depends on your imagination, really. There's also a 3A special ship, which is an Enterprise, as I think the idea, with a disc at the front and then the 2 engine pods at the back, or 3 of them. I'll show you the extra tiles when we get to them. Okay, that's all there is to the base game. If you just want to know how to see a run through now, then skip ahead or see the other video, however I've split this up. And now I'll go through expansion components. Let's go through all the tiles you can get first. This is a router module. I'll mention this again as I go through some of these others. Essentially, it makes everything attached to it adjacent. So with the Epidemic, you certainly don't want to have crew, because they'll all be considered adjacent if they're around this. In comparison to the base game, it doesn't seem to have all that many benefits, but when you look at some of the other components which are added around here, it becomes more important. This is a luxury crew cabin, similar to a normal crew cabin, except you can only have one crew member in it. And if the crew member who's in it survives the entire race, then we go back to this little number here, which I said comes up in the expansions a bit. And for each luxury crew member you've managed to keep alive, so each cabin you've got still with a crew member in it, gets +2 credits. If you lose that crew member, you can't refill them by any means, because there's some ways in the expansions to get them back. You can't replenish the luxury crew member, I think. Oops. These 2 tiles are an engine booster and a laser booster. They work quite differently, actually, so I should probably only do one at a time. The engine booster lets you, if there's an adventure card comes up you don't like, before any kind of resolving it at all is done, you can't do this halfway through, you can opt to jump into hyperspace by blowing off that engine and activating this. What that does is it lets you skip any effects which happen from the adventure card you just revealed, and the next card as well, even if it's a good card. So it's a bit of a risk, but it might help you avoid some really horrible things. I've not really seen many people try and use this, but it could be quite good potentially. Say you're in a higher round and some horrible card comes up which could potentially destroy half your ship. You might just opt to blow off one engine instead and jump into hyperspace. The laser booster again has the effect of blowing off the component it works on, and this temporarily adds 3 laser strength to that laser. So this would become a 4 for the adventure card you're currently looking at, and then it would get destroyed and blown off. And this is one of the places you can see where you might want a router module, because you might want to have an engine booster and you could have 2 engines connected to it, for example, then another 2 here or something. I don't really know why you'd want to do that, but it's something you could do, and that's a use of the router module. More advanced power components. First of all, there is the solar panel. A solar panel is like 1 free battery per adventure card, but the solar panel has to be attached to the component it's powering. So, for example, if you just look at these 3 components here, this one would be powered by this once per adventure card. So if you needed to use it twice, say you had to, say there was 2 meteors, and you wanted to shoot down the first one, I don't know if I mentioned that, but you can shoot down meteors. If a meteor is coming down this column, for example, and you've got a laser facing up it, then that meteor is shot down, it won't hit your ship, even if it's a large one, large and small ones. If it's sideways, oh, I did mention it. If it's sideways, then it's all 3 columns. I wasn't sure if it said, so I thought I'd quickly go over that. So that would power it once per card. If you had to use it a second time, you'd have to spend an energy. And again, this is where router modules are good, because you could potentially use a router to attach more things to the solar panels than otherwise you could. There's not usually very many ways to connect things very easily, so a router module can open that up a little bit. This is a furnace which has to be attached, to make use of it during the flight, it has to be attached to an energy storage location. The way this works is that when you're gaining cargo and you're moving things around, if you had say you'd already got these all full, and you gained a yellow, say that was there, and these were all full as well, and you gained a yellow cargo cube, you could say, well, I want the yellow cargo cube instead of the blue one, and you could then choose to put the blue one into the furnace. And the furnace will then power up one adjacent battery, and it'll return it back to maximum on here. So that's a way you can get extra power during a race using the expansion component of a furnace. People rarely use that, but it's really good because you can have you can get away with having less batteries in your ship, as long as you're fast enough to actually get any cargo. This is an engine booster. Unlike these two, this doesn't blow off a shield, but it does power it up. You have to spend a power to use it, so you'll have to activate this. You'll have to spend a power for the shield and a power for the energy booster. But it makes this shield defend against large meteors and large shots. So this is a way that you can defend even against a large shot coming in your ship, which in the base game would just hit and you wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Alternatively, there is another way you could try and defend against such things, which is using a thruster. A thruster is essentially a temporary movement of your ship to avoid something which is incoming. So say you had a large shot coming down this column, column number 8, you could spend a power to activate your thrusters, and it would essentially temporarily shift your ship over that way, and it would mean that or if you like, it would make it so the meteor then is essentially coming down column 9. In this case, it would then miss your ship completely. Or you could potentially use a thruster, activate it to make it hit a less valuable component. You might have a cargo in a column, in this column, and you might want to use the thruster so it hits the thruster and breaks that off instead to save your precious cargo. I really like thrusters. They're a very cool addition to the game. And it covers 2 directions, which is the 2 directions the nozzles are directed in. So optimally, you'll have one in that corner and one in this corner facing the other way, a bit like how shields go. There's also another kind of alien, a cyan alien. It's special in that you don't know what it does when you build it, and at the end of the building phase, each person who has a cyan alien picks one from going from the first person to a finish, whoever's got the first card on there, picks one from this little set of cards here. So there's the diplomat, who can avoid the negative effects of a bad card. The lawyer, who makes it so that you don't lose any credits for broken off components. The manager, who gives you credits depending on how many aliens you have. Techie, who helps with batteries. Merchant for goods, and telepathic guru, who arms your crew. I'll bring up arming your crew in a second because that's what these 2 tiles are. So that's a bit more of a versatile alien. I usually try and get one because it's quite fun to have. And the telepathic guru is, in my opinion, really, really strong, and I like having it. I'll bring that up in a bit when we get to certain adventure cards. This is just an indestructible shield. Even big laser shots won't break this off if they hit here. If they hit on the exposed connector side, they'll still break it off. So obviously this one, it's only got the one connector side, so it would break off. It would have broken off anyway if there was nothing connected to it. These can sometimes be combined with other components. So for example, I think I picked it up at the start of this video actually. There's like a 2 cargo one of these, for example, with an indestructible shield on the side. So you could put that on the edge of your ship, and it's quite well defended cargo then. This is a stasis chamber, so you can have 4 sleeping crew on this tile. As long as you've got at least one other crew member who's awake on your ship, you can for free just say I'm using him to wake up other crew, and you could then repopulate all your crew chambers up to 2 crew. except for these, of course, because you can't repopulate luxury crew members. So those are pretty cool because they hold a lot of crew members in one go, and it means that, say, if you get one of the cards where you have to give up crew, you just give up a couple, and then you use your remaining one to wake up the rest. This is crew bots. These are sort of temporary crew you can use for situations where you're comparing crew. So either the combat zone where the person with the least crew lost. So in that one, for example, whoever's got the least crew, you could spend an energy to activate your robots and increase your crew count by 4. And that would mean you wouldn't have to lose the flight days, for example. And also for the station where it's, if you've got to have a certain crew count. You can't use it for the ones where you give up crew because they don't count as ones you can give up. They're only temporary crew. You'd have to use these for that. But they can be useful, I think. I don't think I've ever seen anyone use them. But, oh well, what can you say? This is an auto defense. Some of the adventure cards added in the expansions bring invaders into your ship, and they'll run around and they'll eat things or blow things up and the like. If you have one of these and the alien runs into it, the alien gets killed. If you have 2 of these next to each other, so if you had another one here adjacent, it counts as 1 laser strength when you're comparing lasers. So say you're against pirates and you had 4 normal lasers, you've got 2 of these next to each other, that would be your 5th, and you'd have 5 to fight them off. This is an armory. Any armory which is attached to any crew area attached to an armory, including luxury crew, means that crew in that space are armed. Again, you can use a router module to arm multiple ones if you wanted. Being careful that if you've got the crew modules routed together so they're connected to an armory, they're also routed to each other and an epidemic can hit you. Armed crew will kill invaders, as I just mentioned. If they come into your ship and they go into an armed crew area, the armed crew kill off the invader and it gets destroyed and you get a reward. And also, armed crew are worth double for the purposes of comparing crew members. So again, if you're comparing who's got the least crew, if someone had 2 crew but they're armed, they'd count as having 4 for this against someone else who had just 3 unarmed crew, and they would, and the person with 3 would lose the flight days. That's all of the tiles added so far in expansions. I kind of hope they'll add more because I quite like complexity in this game. Then again, it's quite difficult to get people to play frequently enough that they want to play with all the crazy amounts of expansion things. Okay, so expansion cards here. Going from this side. Hazardous sector is in these 3 piles. There is something called a hazardous sector card, and that means you add 2 cards from this deck, from the higher deck up to the top of your current adventure deck, and it makes it so you get potentially some of the harder ones, and you could potentially get hazardous sector into a hazardous sector into a hazardous sector, and you could get around 4 cards in a round 1. It's very, very unlikely, but it's cool. I think we've had it. So I think we've had in round 1. We've had a couple of round 3 cards from it doing 1 step up. So that's a way that things can get a bit more scary with expansions. Commandos and predators are very similar. These are invaders that come into your ship and do things. In a commander's case, they come in, they go 6 spaces, and then they plant 1 bomb. Other commandos could potentially have 6 and then a bomb, and then 6 and another bomb, and they'd move 12 in total. So they can maybe plant more than 1 bomb. Predators come into your ship, and this is saying that they eat everything they come across. So they eat cargo, they eat batteries, and they eat crew. In both of these situations, if you manage to kill them, you get the reward listed on the bottom of the card. So you'd get a cube for him, and you'd get 2 credits if you manage to kill them. The way they work in particular is, if we look at this card, I'll look up the dice. So it's saying that it comes into the ship, and then it moves anti-clockwise around your ship. So it would essentially go anti-clockwise. So you roll the dice. Comes in column 10. That's not very helpful. Let's just fabricate a 7. So they would come in on column 7. If you pretend that there is actually a component in every location on my ship, they'd be going anti-clockwise. So they'd go 1, 2, 3. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4. And if there was batteries and crew or anything down these columns, then they'd get eaten. If you, for example, had this situation, so it couldn't go down here, it just goes as close to being clockwise as it can. And if that meant, and that could also potentially mean it would go 1, 2, 3. Well, I've got a false ship there. So it could potentially go 1, 2, 3, 4. If it can't go all the way clockwise, it just goes as much as it can and sticks to the side of the ship going in an anti-clockwise direction. In this case, sorry, yeah, anti-clockwise. Sorry, just putting those back. Don't need to, but and if you were to come across an auto defences or armed crew, you'd shoot them down and get rid of them, and you wouldn't have a problem. Right. Right. And there's a junkyard. When a junkyard comes up, you can essentially choose to do something. Each player, in the same way as planets, picks which one they want to do. I think you can opt not to on a junkyard. I'm not entirely sure. I'll try and remember to put a note in the video or something. And for example, essentially you'll have something bad happen to you, but to gain something. So you might take a couple of shots to gain some credits. You might take some meteors to gain some cargo. You might lose some crew but gain some energy. You might lose some energy and gain some cargo. And again, it works the same way as planets. And each person picking what they want to do. A star depot is a really cool one, which is set out 6 unused components, and then each person gets to pick one beginning with the leader, with battery tokens and cabins getting new crew members and losing a flight day if you take a component. So essentially the way that works, you just grab 6, put them all face up for people to pick from, and they get to add to their stuff. Then from round 2 onwards, there is bureaucracy added, which is the last player gets a chance to secretly set up a die, and each other player guesses and potentially either loses flight days, so it gives the last player a chance to get ahead. If they guess right with what the player put, then they gain credits. It's all on the card anyway. In round 3, new things you could get. Robo Smokies, which are everyone bets, and then the person who wins can destroy a component in everyone's ship. So they'll probably pick one which is already destroyed in their own, so it destroys in another place if other people's are not their own. And there's also Space Billiards, which are, starting with the first person, they pick another player and then throw one of these rows at someone. So obviously when someone's picked it, it's blanked out and they can't do it again. But it's a kind of aggressive kind of variant where the card to let you attack other players. So it's quite a mean one, which is added. And also the new things you can get in round 4 are that some planets might have crew members, so you can gain crew from going to certain planets. You might have open space, which has this little max on it. What this means is that the person who dares to go fastest in this open space gets hit by 2 meteors. So you kind of have everyone wanting to try and go slowish, that they don't get hit by meteors, but fast enough that they still move up on the track and don't fall behind everyone else. Finally, a radiation leak is that you lose 1 crew member for each component attached to a battery location, and a couple of other things. So it's essentially power's leaking into a cabin and it kills off your crew. Okay. Now I don't really know where to go from here, but that's all of those extra components. I'll mention the expansion boards, and then I'll go into what these extra cards are. Essentially, these are even Steven cards to make the game fairer. Some players are more advanced than others. You can use those to balance it up. I don't really like using them because it just feels really sucky, to be honest, when you just lose just because this card gave you a ridiculous negative or something. But what can you do? They're there if people want them. Everyone has to agree to have that. You can't just tell one player they have to have one and have a negative. Might as well just show you them now. So they've got a good thing and a bad thing, depending on how whether the player wants a handicap or a bonus. They get that. These are things. Oh God, I've got to look at them too. These are horrible, evil ones where everyone gets to put some cards into each flight. These are support teams, which are things which help you out. And these are rough roads, which essentially change the game. Right? So I'll go through a few of those in a minute when I get to them. Right. So extra boards which can come up. So there's a 1A and a 2A. The 1A ship can be flown in any orientation. You just put the engines whichever side you like. So you could put your engines facing this way if you liked, and then for the rest of the for that round, your ship would be flying that way. So that gives you a bit of a choice in which direction you put things, and depending on the order you build your ship, maybe you'll end up flying a very odd direction. Still need that. There's also 2A on this, which is you fly a flotilla of ships. You fly 2 ships in one go. Both ships have to be completely valid, so they have to have crew on each ship, and they have to have engines on each ship. For these ones, you place your little center module, the little blue or whatever color you are thing, anywhere you like on one of the ships, and the other ship you just start building with wherever you like. Sorry, probably should have thought about that more. Have I done them all? Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm getting a bit confused or something. Right. Okay. There's also, this is the 2B ship, which also has a part of a round 4 card on it. The 2B ship is a wraparound ship, which means that any components here have to connect to components here. And because there's no longer any sides, these columns are where meteors can come in at the sides. If you were to get it, you can you'll have to read the full rules for this. I've not really played it very much to understand it, but essentially you roll a dice to pick which one of these columns things come into, and then it comes in at those sides. And down the fronts there is multiple dice for multiple setups of dice for each column, so that it's very likely for your ship to get hit. It's quite an interesting way to play it. Not many people I know particularly like that ship, which is why, like I said, I don't really know how to explain how that one works. There's also, this is a latest models ship, so this is separate to the anniversary edition, which are the 1C and 2C ships. The way these ships work is, first of all, you'll notice that 1 and 2C are on the same board. So there's the orange tiles are for 2C only, and then so you start with a smaller ship, and the next round you get rid of all your tiles and do it again with a bigger ship. This this white line down the middle is a dimensional rift. Down it, you can no longer connect universal to anything. So a universal has to connect to a universal, double has to connect to a double, single has to connect to a single, and space to space. Well, it's always space is always to a space anyway. So you're a bit more limited on how you do that. I really like this. It makes it really cool for me. My girlfriend didn't like it so much, I don't think. But hey, everyone has different likes. And yeah, I think it's really fun. Also, the special thing about this one is, to start with, when things come from the front, you only roll 1 dice instead of 2. 2, 3, 4, and 5, they come down these columns. If you get a 1 or a 6, you re-roll, and the meteors come in from the sides of the ship instead. And depending on what you roll, they could potentially hit 1 column, or I think so a 4. There's 2 columns. So the meteor splits in 2 and comes and hits this, thanks to this dimensional tear down your ship. I think in the rules it's on about how this is a new innovation which has been added. It's not a very effective innovation, I don't think. But it's fun and it makes it a laugh, and it's quite interesting to see how just utterly destroyed your ship can be if you're not being careful. Then there is extra around 3 ships. So, right, this is 3B, which looks like quite an intense one, and is indeed quite intense. On this ship, when you start with the round of this ship, you take 2 dice and you roll them. And out of these coloured spaces, only the ones shown on these dice are available. Oh no, sorry. I think the two which are shown on here are the ones which you can't build in. If you get 2 4s, this center space isn't available. And I'm not sure, but you might not get your center module. You might have to just try and build anyway. So in this one, you have to try and remember which numbers are missing. So say you had a 4 and a 1 on there, you can't build in these spaces. You've got to build around it, and you've got to remember these are the edges of your ship. I absolutely love it. It's a bit of a pain though. Not many people like this because they have to think a lot, and people build on the tiles they're not supposed to, and that can frustrate some people. I find it. I just find it funny when I mess up and I suddenly realise that I've got these holes on my ship which I didn't expect. On the backs of these boards, the three B boards are around 4. Like I said before, these combine with the back of the 2B boards to make a super huge ship. So round 4s are huge. All the tops are different on the round 4 ships, so there's a bit of variety. I'm not sure, but the bottoms might be different as well. Yep, so the top and the bottom, so these are both for the same thing, but that one of them's got a gap and one of them doesn't. So everyone has slightly variance on that, which I think is really cool. Makes it a bit different. Sorry, it's a bit interesting trying to juggle all of these. Then there is more C ships back here. So 3C it's another wraparound ship. In this case, it's meant to be like a Death Star. So if you imagine that this is a kind of a wraparound thing of a sphere, so this side maps to this side matches to this side. So your entire ship has to be together. And you notice it's got no front or back, so you end up having to leave gaps in your ship for your engines and lasers, so that they can fit in. Which is, I've not actually gotten to use this one yet because well, I've only played a couple of times since I got the latest models, and it's a bit of a complex one to think about. And in it, you have to pay credits for insurance depending on how many spaces you've left in your ship. It's a bit like with the Death Star, where there's a key critical weakness. If you leave too big a weakness on your ship, then you have to pay lots of money for insurance. On the back is 4C, which again is a super big one. The way this one works is you're building a flotilla of ships, like in the 2A. I won't get it out, but so you're building these 4 ships, and after each time someone turns the timer, I think the first 2 times the timer's turned, someone rolls a dice, and then the spaces shown become available. So if someone rolled a 2, the person doing the rolling rolled a 2, then these 2 spaces become available, and these 2 ships suddenly merge, and you have to try and build them together. So you've got to try and think about how to make these, but all valid ships, so they don't drop out, because a part of the ship can drop out of the race if it doesn't have engines or something, for example, or no crew. But then as you're building, they might get connected, and you've got to try and work around that, which is a massive pain. But I find it really cool. And if you roll and equals, then these become available. So it's possible for the entire thing to become one big ship. It's possible to have three ships where this is one ship and there's 2 individual ships, and it makes it really exciting because you get completely different setups each time. Just give me a moment. I'm just gonna put these back. I know I don't need to, but if I end up redoing this video, then it's going to be coming in very helpful for me. I've already had to once. It's a bit of a pain with one hand. Right. Okay, so that's all of the ships, all the cards, all the tiles for expansions. And let's get into the special cards for special things. So we start with these, which are rough roads. Like I said, these all do very different things, and you pick one each round, or if you want to make things harder, you can pick 2 or whatever you like. I can't remember if you pick one round or, yeah, I think you pick it per round. So on your first round you pick one, second round you pick a new one. You could do it the same. You can pretty much do whatever you like with these. These are very modular expansions, so you could have one for the entire game if you wanted, if you like, and you could either pick it or you can randomly pick one. I think the official thing is you randomly pick one. So in this case, big baddies. Enemies are 2 points stronger, so instead of 5 lasers to beat something, you'd need 7. So everyone would be trying to rush lasers in that one. Well, that's a bit long to read. metal fatigue. After each open space card, roll for coordinates, and the component of those coordinates falls off. So you just lose bits of your ship when things happen. Explosive goods is quite a fun one. Well, a fun one I say, but it's quite horrible too. If a component with goods is destroyed, all components in all the squares around it are also destroyed, which can cause a chain reaction. So if you've got your goods spaces spread around your ship in a particularly horrible way, you could potentially lose your entire ship to one thing. So as you can tell, these make things harder. They're all very different, and there's explosive various things and crazy things like that. And they affect everyone equally. These cards are Evil Machinations. These are adventure cards which go in with the adventure. Each player gets a hand of these at the start of the game, and each round they put some of these cards into the game. And it's shuffled into the middle of the deck. So you take off the top quarter and the bottom quarter, and you shuffle it into the middle, put the other two bits back on. So the middle of the round has them. So you know the start and the end are fairly safe and don't have horrible things in. But of course, because each player gets to put them in, they know what's coming up. So you know that lasers might be coming up, or you know that whatever that is coming up. I've not really played with these, but they're things that mean that you get more player interaction, and you can be a bit meaner to everyone, and they make the game harder. If you're finding it's too hard because you've been adding all these things, you can put in support teams. Support teams are after the second, after the first round, so after the first race, each player gets a support team, and they get just the A side of that. So in this case, so for the second round, during building, that your ship may be built in two pieces, so they could build two sections rather than always having to build off the main bit. And then on the third round, they'd also get access to the B side, and they'd also get access to the B side, which in this case lets you pick 5 squares and do stuff. You can read it if you like, pause the video. But it gives you more options, and it makes the game easier because it gives you extra things, gives you bonuses. If you're playing a 4-round game, which is something I think might be added later, then on the 4th round you get another A side card, so you end up with 2 support teams to work with. I think it's a really cool one. Again, I've not played it much. I've not played with many of the. I've not played with these cards very much because most people I know prefer to stick with the vanilla game because things start getting too complex, and it's hard to find the kind of player who wants things crazily complex. But all the extra ships are fine. Everyone loves playing with those, even when it's not so much as I love it. So anyway, that's everything in Galaxy Trucker Anniversary Edition and latest models, I believe. Some of the support teams, I believe, or during races, they also added these, which are loans. So say you need some extra credits, you can take a 10 credit thing, but then you end up having to pay 12 credits later. So if you have things which might take you minus credits, they added minus things in the expansions as well. One important thing I've not mentioned actually is that the expansions make this game 5-player from a 4-player game. There's a few different rules when you're playing in 5-player. Essentially, for each card or effect, the first thing happens twice. So when you complete the race, the first 2 people get 4 points. This also happens to the things at the back. So with planets, 2 people can take one of the planets. The second person to take a planet gets 1 less good. If there's pirates, the first person to fight pirates isn't full, but a second person also has to fight the pirates. And when they fight them, the pirates have 1 less laser strength. They also give 1 less to the rewards. They either give 1 less cargo cube or they give 1 less credit. It's just a way of adding in an extra player. I think that they're all sort of fairly, you can kind of work out what the extra thing is to do, and you just kind of add an extra player on, and it gives you extra boards for all of those, which is great because it makes the game 2 to 5 players. So I think I'm going to stop this video there because I've got into an hour just talking about the game and its components just in general. And I'll do another video when I can as a run through, and I'll run through a round or two of the game. Thanks for watching, guys. That's Chris. Bye.